How are you, Terry?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
Thanks so much for doing this.
Hey, no problem.
I really appreciate it. I was listening to Moving Pictures last night.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
how did you mic up the drums for the drum kit? Was the same mics on every song, or did you interchange them?
Oh, it was the same for every song.
Okay.
I don't
So
think we changed anything. If we did, it was just because it was broken or we wanted to change up the sound of a drum, but I don't remember changing it.
right,
We
right,
we
right.
we we got a pretty damn good drum sound
It's
on
amazing.
Tom Sawyer, which was the opening cut for the sessions,
Yeah.
and we just stayed with it.
Yeah, it's so clear. I was listening to it last night, just everything cuts through like perfectly. Is that like more of a tracking more to do with the tracking, or is it, because now records people are like fix everything in the mix. They don't really do pre-production or anything like that.
Well, yeah, I know you're right. These days with Pro Tools, it's sort of a standing joke, isn't it? You have a band, they run down the song and go, "That was horrible. Come and listen."
Let's put some drum samples on it.
Yeah, so I mean, you can do a certain amount, but I mean, the the thing is with drums, especially well, with everything, but drums being totally acoustic.
Mm,
If you get a really good pickup right off the floor, you're going to get you get an even better mix because you've got more to work with. But you're right, though. You can. I mean, I'm working on an album right now, and the drums were recorded in a basement
right,
studio,
right.
and they feel great, and the playing is really good. But some of the sounds leave a little to be desired. So I have to work on that and bring it up to par. But
Yeah.
that's kind of fun too to do
Yeah.
that.
Do you more so like would you be doing taking frequencies away or adding frequencies when it's more like not a great recording?
Well, it depends on how the drums are recorded. For instance, with a kick drum, I'd probably notch out a big chunk of 350 cycles on my
Right, right,
neve
right, right.
and then boost the low end at 35 or 60 cycles
Oh,
and
okay.
crank up the upper mids or top. So you can
Okay.
bring out the frequencies that you're actually looking for that are missing, or take away frequencies that are just over the top.
Yeah, do you think it's kind of a different a way to mix it? You grew up mixing with no screens, so you kind of probably your ears are more tuned to like frequencies, whereas like I think with a lot of my generation, we're looking at the spectrum, and I think it can affect the way you mix, I think.
Well, it's pretty hard to see what's wrong with a kick drum
Right,
just by
right.
looking at the file. You need to put on, some kind of analyzer, so that, or something like sculpture, which will actually look at the drum and go, "Oh, there's way too much 350 in there," and immediately take it out, just because it knows what a kick drum's supposed to sound like.
Right,
So
right.
that's always helpful to use a plug-in like that,
Is
and
that
I
the
do. I do use them too.
is that the isotope one? That sculptor from
Yeah,
Isotope? Yeah.
isotope sculptor.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's damn good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Great. It's great on snare and vocals. I mean, it doesn't always work. It depends on what you've got, and if it's not quite good enough, it tends to sort of make it sound better.
Right.
But if
Yeah,
you've got a
yeah.
really good snare sound, and it might actually take away from it because it thinks there's like maybe too much top or whatever. No.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah. I
got to
get
use
you.
your ears all the time.
Yeah, I think, for someone like me who grew up not like I didn't grow up in studios or like I just grew up listening to records. So
Yeah.
I had a habit of when I'm younger, and I still kind of do it a bit, which I'm trying to get is soloing things. And it sounds great, and then you take it off and it sounds like shit. So it's kind of that thing of mixing everything together, to get that because it's very tempting to go, that sounds a bit off, I'll solo it. Do you solo much, or do you just mix
Oh yeah.
everything
I
as a
mean,
whole?
I'll be listening to an instrument, like guitar, and I'll immediately decide what I like about it and what I don't like about it, and I'll
Okay.
fix it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
You know,
Right.
like if it doesn't have, if there's no delay on it, it's got to have delay on it.
Right.
So I'll put a delay on it of some kind. It can be quite subtle, you know, and then maybe add a little bit more 2K and a little bit more bottom so that it jumps out a bit more.
Yeah. 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 What do you think of like modern records, how they sound, as opposed to say 70s,
Well,
60s, like that?
good records sound really good.
Yeah.
I must admit, you know, I hear stuff that I'm impressed with. Um, but stuff that's recorded by amateurs that doesn't actually get, you know, the stuff that's sent to me, you know, could I mix this, or would, you know, can you give me some pointers? Some of it sounds a bit rough
Yeah, I get you.
because a lot of people don't have any experience of recording. So they, you know, they just sort of plug a mic in and stick it in front of a guitar and that's it.
Yeah,
So
yeah. There's a certain thing lost, isn't it, in that kind of modern like of everyone just thinks if they get a good interface and a decent mic that it's going to sound great, and they don't really know the room and all these kind of things that
yeah, but
work in.
the smart folks, they listen
Yeah,
and they use their ears, get a
yeah,
decent set of monitors, and they listen. And they're listening to a lot of bands, a lot of individuals are listening to a lot of material. So you can get a pretty good idea of what you like and what you don't like, and then you can tailor things that you're working on to be more like the stuff that you love.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and of course, there's all kinds of algorithms, aren't there, these days that, you know, will shape things. They'll take a mix
Yeah.
and shape it into something like Elton John, an Elton John mix, you know, or the Who or whatever. It's handy,
Yeah.
you know, if you haven't had the fortune to be, you know, spending years in the studio. It's kind of nice to be able to pick a piece of software that will actually make your record sound better.
Yeah, there is something about those records, so like the Beach Boys records and stuff like with the Wrecking Crew all playing in the room together like that. They just
Right.
sound incredible. Like
Oh yeah.
it just
Yeah.
sound.
Yeah, there's no, it's pretty hard to reproduce that kind of thing
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
unless you're, you know, unless you're super talented and you know how to do it.
yeah. Though I will say, like when you Phil, your brother, the Talk Talk record, especially Spirit of Eden, it sounds like a band, even though everything's recorded separately. Like that's the kind
Right.
of like that's guys they're so talented they made it sound like a band, and it's just fucking great record. Love that record.
Oh yeah, sure is.
So if we were to go back to the start, um, what made you want to get into production and engineering? Like what age
Well,
were you and
I think I was 17. And I didn't actually want to get into production engineering because I didn't even know it existed.
right?
But I actually lucked into an interview with Keith Grant over at Olympic, old Olympic, on
Mm,
Carlton Mews.
mm.
And I went over there for an interview with him. He and I just hit it off. It was like we had a great time talking. And he said, okay, well, start Monday. This was like Thursday or Wednesday or something of the previous week. I said, okay, sure. So I went back and handed in my resignation at my very mediocre job of mailboy and at a small agency in London, and showed up at the studio on Monday, the following Monday. And so I just got introduced to it on the job. I really didn't know what to expect. It was all a big
Wow,
mystery, but
wow.
it sounded great.
That must have been amazing though, just back then, like at the kind of it's kind of at the start of recording when it's getting even better, because you had the
Oh, it was
50s.
incredible. I think the first session that I actually worked on was Marianne Faithful,
Oh,
As Tears Go By. So
wow.
you can imagine how that felt. I'd only been there a few days, and you know, I watched Keith setting up and helped him set up, and then went upstairs and hung out with him. And We were recording Marianne Faithfull's huge hit. It was
That's
pretty
incredible.
wild. And
That
it
is
didn't
so good.
stop. I mean, we did
Yeah.
one a week and they were all massive hits. It was incredible. It was just very fortuitous.
Wow. That's unreal, man. What was the
I
vibe like?
know.
The vibe must have been unbelievable.
Oh, it was. It was incredible. I mean, there she was sitting on a stool with her acoustic guitar, with the orchestra set up around her, and we ran this tune down, and it just sounded amazing, and it got better and better.
That's so cool, man.
I know.
Damn. I'm always envious. Like when I hear these stories, I'm like, why did I grow up now? It's so annoying. Like, I would
Yeah,
have
yeah,
loved to.
it was a great time to be that age. There's no question about it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Because you could actually kind of, you could live as well. You like, you could actually probably buy a house and stuff like that. Whereas like my generation is like, all right, man, you ain't buying anything. You buy a bar of chocolate if you're lucky. That's about it. So
I know, I know.
it's
It's outrageous the way it's gone.
yeah, it's crazy. What was it like when you were recording Hendrix, engineering Hendrix? That must have been just
That
mind
was a
blowing.
real treat. I mean, I used to hang out with Jimmy in the hall, and we'd have coffee, and
That's so
we'd
cool.
talk, sit on the stairs and chat. But so I didn't really know him or work on his sessions, except for the time that um, Eddie was unable to do it one evening, and he said, Would I do it?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah, sure, I guess." I didn't even think about it. It was like it wasn't an ooh ah thing, not back
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
Because I hung out with him. We used to, as I say, we used to sit and talk. So I was like, yeah, sure, that'd be fun. And so I ended up recording the opening of Axis,
That's so cool.
and it was really quite a treat. It was fantastic. We had this crazy setup with this double stack Marshall, and then he had a 4.5, 5 foot horn strapped to the side of it. It was like, what do you
Wow.
do with that? But we ended up, obviously getting some decent sounds. And it was lovely to work with the rhythm section too. So
Yeah, Mitch Mitchell, like unbelievable.
yeah, even Mitch was great. Yeah, I really liked him, and I'd worked with him a few times on different sessions. He was a sweetheart. I loved
What?
his playing.
Yeah, just amazing. Like, what was the sound like?
In Olympic,
Yeah, in Olympic. Yeah.
well, this was New Olympic. Because obviously old Olympic had closed down at that point. So we were actually in New Olympic in the big room. Yeah, sounds were really cool to get. I mean, I had that Helios console,
Ah, yes.
and I think it was the first one that Dick had built at the new room, or the new premises, and it sounded fantastic. So there was no problem getting sounds.
Were you involved in like the mixing of the records that you engineered? Because I know people used to all be in a like there'd be loads of people on the desk kind of doing things.
Well, yeah, but not at that stage in my career. I mean, I worked on the first Procol Harum album, and
Wow.
Procol was they came in for like probably about 3 months on and off, and that record then was, and it also was being recorded at IBC, I think think,
Yeah.
and so they then picked all the best cuts and put it all together, and then mixed it. So I never got involved in the mixing of that. Um, but I did mix some of the records. I mean, like I mixed Substitute by the Who
Oh, class.
as we were recording, but that was at Old Olympic. Um, did some Manfred Mann stuff, and I mixed that in the small studio, and the Move, and oh yeah, all kinds of stuff. Oh my god, I've lost track of all the things that went through the doors.
Yeah,
It was
man.
wild.
That time is just, when I look back, and obviously I wasn't there, but when I just look back at it, just not just the music, but the vibe, like everything just looked so. It was like what I love about it is music. People were were trying to make music that was um not complex, but they were trying to push things still, but also it was so melodic and it was commercial. And nowadays things people just want to make stuff commercial. They don't really care about how artistic it is or anything like that. And that's what I loved about '60s records is like like Beatles and Beach Boys and Kinks and all that kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I had sort of mixed feelings about that. I mean, the music is so fashionable, and
Oh
the kind of stuff that's being done today is the fashion of today. And I think they take it pretty seriously, the people that do it. And a lot of the mixers and producers that do it really well take a lot of pride in what they do.
yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it's changed that much. It's just that the source has changed so much. Like
Right.
the music is not as visceral and down to earth and streetwise. It's more, well, I don't need to tell you, you know. You I'm sure you listen to the radio from time to time.
Yeah, it's more, I don't
Oh, by
know.
the way, your voice has now come back, so you must have a loose something
Oh,
or other. It's
maybe
now
I've
sounds perfect again.
like, sometimes when I've had people on the podcast, they'll be in like a really echoey room, and like
Oh yeah,
with plugins now you can just take out the echo, which is
that's
class.
right. Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
unbelievable. Like
I
it's
actually
unbelievable.
did that. I was working on a track for the new Rush 50th, and I took the vocal track and put it in a piece of AI software
Wow.
and completely removed the band from it. So it was great. So
Wow.
I had a little bit more room to fiddle with the vocal.
Class.
First time I've done that. Before, I've always struggled with, like pulling it down in between lines and
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
But now
Some of the stuff you can do with that AI is unbelievable.
it's
Like
amazing.
it's like, and
Yeah.
you're not getting that much artifacts. There's still a little bit.
I could even make geddylee sound like Taylor Swift.
I've a guy who I had in the podcast, and he recreates Beach Boys songs that they never kind of finished, or he like finished
Oh,
off
yeah.
Smile. I mean, it's he makes his own models. You have to train the models, and then it takes hours,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
he
yeah,
puts all
yeah.
the stuff. It sounds incredible. He as has been doing it over the years, it just gets better and better to the point you're like, that sounds like Brian Wilson or Carl Wilson or stuff like that. It's really
Is that
impressive.
right?
It's really impressive. Like, see, he finished off they did a version of Old Man River, and man, it sounds unreal. I'll send it to you in an email. It's like Jesus
Now,
Christ.
is he endorsed by the Beach Boys?
No, that's what I don't know how he's not, because what he's
That's
doing.
interesting because I don't know if you followed the Molly Marriott thing.
No, what's that?
Well, she's was really upset because they were the estate trying to put together an album of Steve Marriott of material that he never even recorded. Like it, so that they'd get somebody to sing it and make it sound like Steve Marriott. And she got a whole bunch of big name artists on side to say this has got to stop.
Yeah,
This cannot go on because
yeah.
it's not right.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's wrong. That kind of thing. What your man's doing is kind of a bit of fun. When you're doing something like you're
Yeah,
making new stuff, I think that's when you're falling into like this is just weird.
yeah, exactly.
I think as a tool, AI is really good for stuff. Like, it's really you can do some cool
Well,
stuff.
it's like anything, isn't it? If it's
Yeah.
used properly, but
Yes.
there's always going to be people who will take advantage of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I seen an ad the other day, and it was like write a book with AI. Just putting you're like that. Then you're not
Yeah,
right. You're not writing a book. That's just like what are you talking about? It's fucking.
really.
It's just weird. Like,
You write like five or six things how you want the plot to, develop and the characters in it. Thank you. Okay, and you get back a 400-page book.
yeah, yeah. It's just like and plus you don't even know what it said in it. It could be mad shit like altogether. So yeah, it's just. I don't know. It's crazy. It's good, like you said, you can use it to your advantage in certain things, but it's like auto tune. That's just
Yeah,
gone. That's
yeah.
just gone.
Used properly, you don't even know it's there.
Yeah, yeah,
It's impossible to tell it's there.
yeah,
But if you don't do it properly, you can either hear it or you do it intentionally so you can hear it,
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
part of the sound.
During the Euros, they had an ad for like they took McCartney's voice for Hey Jude because it was a football player, Jude Bellingham, and they had McCartney singing Hey Jude, but they auto-tuned Paul McCartney's voice on the Hey Jude. I was like, oh no. I was like, that is wrong. It sounded,
Really?
yeah, it sounded so weird. I was like, that just sounds weird. Like it was
Yeah,
strange, you know. And that's what I love about old records. Like, the imperfections of things are kind of what make them great. Like not everyone's singing purely in tune and stuff like that.
that's true.
You
Yeah.
know,
I'm working with a band right now, a band called Leadfoot Granny, and
Interesting
I'm
name.
mixing an album for them. They're out of Ohio, Toledo, Ohio, and they're like 4 18-year-olds. And the singer, she is just amazing.
Yeah.
And there's no tuning, but she has that ability, to be able to use her pitch to her advantage.
Yes,
And
yes,
it
yes.
sounds so real. You hear the little imperfections, but it just punctuates things. It's
Yeah,
great. Like
yeah,
Annie Lennox. I mean,
yeah.
there's someone who she knows how to sing blue notes and make them work for her.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? Like it's like,
Oh yeah,
you know, and I was
yeah,
even listening to Jealous Guy by Lennon the other day. You're like, and he's hitting a good few bum notes, but it's brilliant. Like
yeah.
it's brilliant.
You don't
Whereas,
care, do you?
yeah, it's the vibe, you just as long as you
Yeah.
get as long as I think if it's every note, then you're like, okay, that sounds bad. But when it's just a
If
few,
somebody's singing out of tune,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
I can't listen to this. I got to turn it off. I do. It's like there's times people send me stuff and I'm like, no. And I'm not fixing it either because it isn't good in the beginning.
That's brilliant, man. That's brilliant. But talking about Rush, how many takes would you normally do? I know it's song dependent, but would Geddy spend a lot of time doing vocals, or would he kind of be fairly on the ball and just know exactly what he wanted?
Well, I mean, he definitely knew what he wanted, and I knew what I wanted from him. So
Yeah.
between the two of us, yeah, we'd be right there. So we wouldn't belabor anything.
Right, right,
We'd
right.
know where we were going. And I mean, you know, we demo the stuff, so we had a really good idea where the melodies would go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. How
yeah.
did you actually get involved with Rush?
Um, they came into the studio when I had Toronto Sound back in
Hmm.
'74. Um, they came in, they'd already recorded an album on the Graveyard Shift. It was 8 track, and they couldn't get it to sound right. And they wanted some help. So their manager, Vic Wilson, said, I know this teabag over at Toronto Sound. He'll fix it for you. So they showed up one afternoon and they still needed a couple of tunes because they'd only done like 80% of the record. So we recorded 2 tunes, and between doing that and the following day, we mixed the whole thing. But we
Wow.
got along like a house on fire. It was such a treat. I mean, I can remember just being blown away by the way they played and sang. It was like Alex's guitar playing was like, holy crap. I haven't worked with anybody who does it this good.
Yeah, he's
It was great.
underrated. He's very underrated when people talk about guitar players. Uh,
Yeah, he gets his fair kudos though. I mean, he's a great player.
yeah, amazing player. Like, so
Yeah.
that was Fly By Night, was it, that record?
No, it was Rush. And it was because of Rush that I ended up being asked if I would produce Fly By Night.
Ah, okay, okay. So what was
So
it
they came
like?
back in, and when they came back in, Neil Peart was
Yeah,
the
that's
drummer.
that must have been incredible.
Yeah, it was like that was wild. But again, at the time, he was another drummer. I mean, I didn't know who he was at the time,
Yeah.
but we started working together, and it was quite obvious that he was pretty shit hot.
Yeah, man, that guy's fucking unbelievable.
Oh yeah,
There's that video of him doing the jazz. Ever seen that, the Buddy Rich tribute?
I haven't watched too much of it, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's pretty
he's just
amazing.
killing it, man. Yeah, man.
Yeah. Oh,
Just
he was a great player. And I used to play drums, so working with Neil was like a gift from God.
yeah.
It was like, holy crap, this guy can play.
What was the vibe like of the three of them together playing together? It
Oh, it
must
was
have been
amazing.
unbelievable.
It was great. They were pals.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
they got along so well. In fact, I bumped into a thing when Ged was talking about their relationship on an interview last a couple of nights ago, oddly enough. And he said that right from the beginning, they sat down and they said, you know, I know I came in with this tune and Alex helped write this and such, but he said the three of us would put the song together, and it was the three of us that came up with the final result. So he said we made an agreement right then and there that we'd split the songs three ways, every song. And he
Right.
said we never had to worry about it ever again. It never had to be discussed, and it never caused any problems because we were all sharing equally. And he said, and
Yeah.
that's been a huge part of our relationship.
Do you think that
So,
keeps bands together? I think that if people can fall
oh,
out of
absolutely. I mean, there are so many situations where, the singer writes the songs and has a band of pickup guys with him who are buddies of his, right? Or
yeah.
hers, but they don't share in the income. And at some point down the road, when the singer's living in a mansion and the kids in the band are living still renting, it doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah.
Pisses people off.
I remember Billy Corgan talking about that. The kind of band were like, "Hey, this guy's making so much more money than us," and it's like, you know, did you use? Was there specific mics you would use for Getty's voice, or was it? Did you have a mic that you would always
Yeah,
use?
as a matter of fact, oddly enough, I was never a big fan of Neumann 67s
Right.
or 87s. The 67 was nice, the tube mic, but the 87s, I was like, I really loved the 414, the AKG 414.
That's what I'm
It was
using
just,
there.
was that what that is?
Yeah,
Oh, so it is.
let me see.
Yeah.
It's the one from the 80s.
There you go. No wonder you sound so good.
Dude, it's an incredible like I use on my vocals. I have loads of mics, but like
It's a great sounding microphone. It's a little sweeter in the top end. It's a little smoother. Doesn't have that sort of mid range bump
yeah,
in the Neumann has. And I mean, the Neumann's a great mic. Don't get me wrong. And for a lot of people, it's the mic of choice.
yeah,
But for me, I just felt, when Ged really starts pushing hard up in that higher register, I wanted something that could handle it in a slightly smoother way. And I
right,
and that was my mic of choice. And we
right.
used it all the time.
These guys that used to work for AKG, they make this. I'll show you now. They make this microphone. I don't know if you've seen it. It's an Austrian audio, so it sounds like the C16. Like that is an incredible sounding mic. These
Really?
guys, yeah, they used to work for AKG, and then they left because they were like, well, they're not really making them like they used to, and then they started making these.
And
There's
what's the company?
Austrian audio.
Oh, I don't know them.
Yeah, this sounds
I don't.
amazing. It
Really?
sounds, yeah, yeah, yeah. They put in this like special capsule technology. This one is called the OC18, and there's another one called the higher up one's called the OC818, and you can change the polarity after you record, which is
Wow.
yeah, and you can stereo record with the one mic. It's
Wow.
yeah, it's crazy shit. I'm like, whoa, that's. I was like, I was gonna get that one. I was like, no, man, because I'll just obsess over things too much, and I'll just go be like, no, I'll change this, and too many options isn't good for me. I'm like, no,
Yeah,
just give me
yeah,
the
yeah.
one
No,
thing.
it's just true. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's a great sounding mic. It's great sounding. Bit more body than the 414, but it's a great sounding mic.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not expensive. It's like €500.
Hmm. That's
You
pretty
know,
cool.
yeah, yeah, it's really good because mics. Like mics are very specific for like I think I have a very kind of shitty voice to record, so it's like I have to get a mic that's not too. I have a tube mic there that's a kind of U47 thing, and I find when I sing in it to it if I go high, it just distorts, but not in a nice way. It distorts. It's
Yeah,
like it
yeah, yeah,
just,
yeah.
so it is what it is,
Speaking of distortion, I was using a 251 um, Telefunken 251, which was a
Class.
microphone I loved. And I hadn't used it many, many years. And we're going back a while.
Yeah.
I was making a rock record. And I'd heard that there was a, it was in Connecticut at a studio there. And there was a fellow down the street who was a cellist and he had a 251. And I made a deal with the owner of the studio that we could actually borrow it or rent it from this fellow. And he uh, he was busy. We tried to get it. He's busy. He tried to get it, and finally, you can come and get the 251. So we sent one of the seconds down, drove down the road, and picked it up. Came back, plugged it in, didn't work.
Oh,
It's like
no.
what? So so obviously the tube was blown. So I think what happened was had just been used. Instead of letting it cool down, he packed
Um,
it up, put it in the box. The guy drove back on the bumpy road, and it blew the tube.
oh
So
shit.
I said, well, we got to do some vocals here. So I grabbed a tube out of one of the Marshalls, one of the little. I forget what it was now, AX7 maybe a little. I'm not really good on my tubes and things, but it was a little wee tube, and it fitted into the 251.
Wow.
Pushed it in, yeah, it's perfect. Plugged it in, it worked. It's like fantastic. So we start recording this vocal, and it sounded incredible. I was like, holy crap, I've not heard anything sound this good. So I solo the vocal while he's doing his vocal, and it was so distorted. It's like, what? And I take the solo off. It sounded absolutely perfect in the mix. So we did all the vocals with it, and we took the tube out and kept the tube and sent it back because this guy needed it again. And when we did more vocals, we put the tube back in and did more vocals, and it sounded incredible. The whole thing, his vocals were amazing.
How?
Distortion, I love it. I often put distortion on my vocals. I use what's it called? It's a little plug-in. It's a cheap and cheerful little plug-in. I should remember, but anyway, I just put it on, add a little distortion to the vocal, and the vocal jumps forward, like a couple of feet,
Yeah.
and sounds absolutely perfect.
That's class.
You
That's
can't beat it.
class. Yeah, I was telling you yesterday about the. I'll show you now. Remember this distortion box I have? Well, it's like a tape saturation thing.
Yeah, you
I don't.
mentioned that. Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's fucking incredible. Like it's like so you have these switches which are like it does bass bumps, and that kind of takes the top end off a bit, and then it kind of gives you can if you have that up, there's more. It's a more of a bump from we'll say 400 to the low end, and if you take it down, it's more of a low end bump. And
Wow.
dude, it sounds so good. Like it just kind of, you know, saturates the sound in a kind of pleasant way. It just, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I do put on
Yeah.
the master,
Maybe
but
you can text me the name of it.
oh well, yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. See
Guy
if,
in guy
and
in
that
Germany makes it.
microphone too. Yeah, the
Yes,
Austrian audio.
yes, I will
Yeah.
do. Is there a microphone that you like love the most, just in general? Is there any microphone that you really like,
Um, a microphone I really like. Well,
or a
the
few, or a
um,
few?
the I, I've got a terrible memory for facts and figures. There's a really fat Neumann called an M.
Oh, an M50 or an M150,
Is it a one
M49, M49.
M49? Thank you.
Here,
Yeah,
yeah.
the M49. I have one of those,
Oh
and I
wow.
love it for recording vocals. To be really honest with you, I haven't done any recording for about 6 years because of
Wow.
COVID.
Okay.
I mean, I did a little bit before COVID, um, vocals and what have you, but I was working on this record with Chris Herron from Tiles, and he put a solo record together. And we, most of the parts were phoned in. So, and it was a question of putting them together and you know making little adjustments and what have you. So I would record vocals and stuff, but didn't really do a lot of recording during that period. Um,
Okay.
because you know we weren't allowed in the studio for starters. So on my recording thing really dropped. So I haven't really done my studio that I have at the moment. We haven't really got the recording floor set up. We're still
Ah,
working, and we were working on the Atmos side of the room. So we haven't.
okay. Have you have
Yeah,
you have you mixed in Atmos? I always wonder. I've never listened to Atmos, but people keep telling me, "Oh, it's amazing."
it's amazing.
Is it really?
See,
Yeah.
oh, it's a thrill.
Oh shit! I gotta listen to that so now.
Yeah, you got to listen to it. Yeah, 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 for sure.
Wow.
It's a real treat.
So how do you listen to it? Is it with those earbuds
Well,
or the speakers or?
we haven't quite got our setup up and running up at the studio yet. We're
Mhm.
about a week away. But I've got a Dolby Atmos sound bar
Oh wow.
for the TV, and also you can listen to it on earbud pros, you know, like
Those
the
Apple
little
ones.
Apple ones.
Yeah.
And there are others, but I happen to have those, and it's a real treat. I
Really?
mean, it has this sort of feeling that there's no limit to what you can keep adding, and you don't get the compression and the sort of linearity of a two-track mix. It
Right.
just keeps getting bigger and wider, and it's like, oh my god, this is fantastic. It's
Wow.
great. It's great. I highly recommend it. I mean, I can't
Wow.
wait to get our room up and running because we've got projects that we desperately want to get happening in Atmos.
So will you mix Rush stuff in Atmos? That'd be incredible.
I don't know. We'll see where that goes.
That would be
But yeah,
unbelievable.
it would be a real kind of a treat, wouldn't
Yeah. So like, how does it kind of sound? Is it like spacious? Is it just like really like
Yeah,
immersive?
it's
Kind
just
of.
like you've got so much room for putting stuff together. Um, you know, you can add like a big fat bass sound, and you don't have to worry about keeping it tight in the two-track environment. It can be
Mm.
huge, and then you can add extra vocals and big drums, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and there always seems to be room, regardless of what you put in.
Wow. That's unreal.
So yeah, Atmos, I can only, I mean, I don't have the experience yet, but I know exactly where I'm going with it and what I want to do. It's 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 amazing. I mean, there's some great records that have been mixed in, like Dark Side of the Moon. You can get in Atmos.
Yeah.
Um, the
The Beatles,
Doors.
the Beatles did Abbey Road, I think.
Didn't check that out. I don't like the new mixes of the Beatles, to be honest with
Ah,
you.
I'm
I don't
I'm
think.
I'm torn on them. Mono is the Beatles for me. It can't,
Well, yeah, okay, yeah. How true?
it just sounds punchy. It's just like it's punchy and just in
Yeah,
your face,
yeah,
and the
yeah. There's
mix.
something about the glue that's missing in the new ones. It's all, you know. I can hear too much of what's going on. I don't want to do that. It's like I want to hear the glue, and the way it all hung together in the old days was total genius.
Yeah, and they're a
I
bit too
think
bright.
that.
They're a bit too bright. Those new mixes. They're
Well,
very bright.
exactly. Yeah, they don't sound like the Beatles.
Yeah,
I don't think.
yeah.
Call me crazy.
The White Album actually sounds pretty decent. I actually said the White Album, that remix sounds pretty good.
I haven't done a lot of listening, so I can't. But I mean, I can hear it on the radio. I'll be
Right.
like, what the hell? That doesn't sound like the original mix.
Were you a big Beatles fan?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not an aficionado, but I
Okay.
loved the Beatles. I thought they were amazing. All those early hits that they had, Love Me Do. And I mean, they were so well put together. It's so much energy and they were so enthusiastic. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
great and optimistic, I thought, you know, and I love that. Those are two things that enthusiasm and optimism is like right up my street.
Yeah, and they were all
The
going in the same
angst,
direction.
yeah, 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 yeah. The angst thing, I mean, I can handle it, and it's important from time to time. But there's been too much of it in the last few years.
Yeah. You know, I always think about that with the Beatles and the Beach Boys because I love both of them, and I always think that's the kind of downfall of the Beach Boys was that Brian was kind of on his own and he was going in his direction, whereas he didn't have the support of. I know we're getting into whatever here, but I mean the Beatles were all like a team; they were all going in the same direction. They knew what they wanted, whereas Brian was kind of on his own
Well, until they weren't.
until they weren't exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, same thing happened to them.
yeah, until they weren't.
I want to be the leader of this band.
Yeah.
Eh.
I do love though that it ended. I love that it ended because you know you have
Yeah,
this thing of like let's keep going till it's like and you like dude no it's like Star Wars. Stop making Star Wars. Like
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah,
fine. We
yeah.
don't need any more Star Wars. But people kind of think they always want a sequel, and it's like no, you don't need a sequel to everything.
Yeah.
Just you
No,
can.
you're right. You're right.
It's like the Prisoner. You don't need a sequel to the Prisoner. Just leave the
No,
Prisoner alone. Like I fucking
yeah,
love the
leave it
Prisoner.
alone.
Yeah,
It
you
was
know.
good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Records wise, I'm sure there's many because you've done so many, but is there records that you have done mixed produced that you like the most that really have a special place for you? I know there's a lot. I know
Oh,
there's a
that's
lot.
hard, really. I mean, there's a lot of records that I've done that I really enjoyed and they've been successful.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still listening to Cutting Crew broadcast on the radio. It's like that died in your arms just won't go to sleep. It just keeps on. I hear it like once or twice a day on the radio. It's crazy.
Wow.
Great song though.
Yeah,
Boy, you know, you write something like that. I mean, that's killer.
you're set up for life on that one, I'd say.
Yeah,
Or
it
if you
was.
write that one.
There was everything about it was so perfect though. That whole young love and romanticism all put together in such a great lyric.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can hear it over and over. Well, personally, I can hear it over and over again and never really get sick of it.
what year was that recorded in?
87, I think, or 86.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you records wise, do you is there an era that you like the sound of more from a production point of view than
Oh, geez, that's a very good question. I mean, I love good production no matter when it was around, but I don't know. The 80s, there's some great crap in the 80s. You know, there's some really good stuff out there with great melodies and
yeah.
great arrangements. And yeah.
Awful gated snares though. I can't stand a fucking gated
No,
snare.
yeah, you're right. You're right. That's a bit of a problem. It's easy to overdo that
Oh
stuff.
man, that gated snare. I'm like the minute you hear it, you're like 80s. It kind of dates things. You're like, oh,
Yeah,
80s,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, true,
you
true.
know, which is can be that can be good too in a way that you know something is of its time too. But there's something cool about like a timeless record where you go like that could be kind of that could be anywhere. Like I know and like the talk stuff, like that's very the later stuff like Spirit of Eden. You wouldn't really know where to. You're like it
Yeah,
doesn't sound like an '80s record.
I feel the same way about Pink Floyd.
Yeah, yeah,
They don't pinpoint themselves by using gimmicks.
yeah,
It's just great music,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
I love Pink Floyd.
really well crafted, great playing.
Yeah.
You
It,
still can't beat great playing.
No, like with especially the drums with Pink Floyd it had that lovely like laid back. It was almost it
Mm,
wasn't very he didn't hit the snare very loud. It was
no, no,
just that vibe.
wasn't flashy.
No, no, no. How long do you would you spend on mixing a song? Would you know exactly? You kind of you've been doing it so long, you can just probably second nature to you. Would you?
It varies. I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes it takes a while to get the essence of a band.
Okay.
Like I started mixing the Leadfoot Grannies last week or week before last. It took me about three or four songs. Actually, it was the very last song that I did that I felt really nailed the sound. But
Oh.
I sort of was getting really close to it about four songs back. So now I've gone back to the top and I'm redoing the first two or three songs in
Okay.
order to encapsulate that vibe. But so, I'll spend, I don't know, a, if it takes me a day, I'll take a day. It may take me two. Maybe I'll do it in 4 or 5 hours. A lot
Right.
depends on the material and what I'm looking for.
Right.
Recording and mixing. Chris Herring's album took 13 years, I think.
Whoa. Wow.
I know, exactly. Whoa.
Whoa.
Yeah, we started that when I was living downtown, and I had a third floor apartment studio, and we started recording the demos there, and that was back in 2010, I think. It's
Yeah.
now 2024,
Okay.
and it's been finished for about a year, but it's coming out in October. It's
Yeah.
really real. I think you'd love it. It's got some really great tunes, beautiful arrangements, and it goes from like good solid rock to more orchestral stuff. It's
Oh,
cool.
cool. I gotta check that
Yeah.
out. Yeah, okay, I just wanted to kind of ask a bit about 2112. The drums on that record are very kind of they're they're kind of dry, really, aren't they? They're not very like biggish, which I like. I love the sound of them.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've listened to it, but they wouldn't. They're not overly wet. No, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
So would you be close mic and everything? You wouldn't be using too much room.
Yeah, everything's close mic'd. I mean, and the studio was fairly small, pretty dry. Didn't really have a
Ah,
live end to it.
okay. So
So
what
yeah,
studio was that?
that was Toronto Sound.
Ah, okay. Okay. I think the
Yeah, that
sound of that
was.
record's great. That's
Yeah, I
amazing.
think it's a pretty cool record. Yeah,
Amazing
yeah,
record. It's just
yeah.
like the I
It
love the
was
whole
fun to make.
yeah, I can imagine like
We had a great time making that record,
did you do
and of course, it was coming off of Caress of Steel, which was, as you probably remember, was like not well received
yeah.
and caused the boys a lot of angst. So here we are going in and making, like a one side, one complete side, and then five singles. And but it hit home.
Yeah, it's amazing
It had the magic.
for sure. Like the first side when you were recording that would you do that? Were you recording it in chunks, or were you just would they do full takes of the whole
Yeah.
thing?
We do it in sections.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Was that difficult, kind of punching in with tape and stuff like that?
Well, not really. I mean, it can be done in sections, but then it can be mixed as if it was complete.
Ah, okay,
So it was
okay.
actually recorded because you've only got what 15 minutes on a roll of tape at 30 IPS.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you'd have, you get two takes of one song or three takes
Okay,
and you're done. You got to
okay.
open another roll. So then you mix them separately and put them together seamlessly.
Okay, so were you all their stuff? Did you record at 30 IPS? You never went to 15.
We did do 15. I don't remember if I never bothered keeping track of it back then. It may have been 15. It's possible it was 15. I don't remember.
Right, right, right. Do you think there's did
I know the later stuff was 30,
okay,
but you could be right. Could have been 15. It's got a
right.
really nice punchy bottom end.
Yeah, that's it's man, that record is so cool. Like Jesus, dude. Like how like when they were recording that did you can you I know it's hard to say, but could you kind of tell that like oh this is kind of something that's special like and because I know there's so much stuff like that, but
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, I always thought that everything they did was special. So I was,
yeah,
I was a big fan of theirs as well as being producer or
yeah,
co-producer. Yeah, I thought their material was killer and the lyrics were great and the storyline was engaging and, and all the different elements in the arrangements that we put in were, I just thought they were great. So
Yeah, the whole sci-fi story is
yeah,
I love
exactly.
it. I
And of
love it.
course, I was into sci-fi because I did the Klaatu records as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so I was like, that was right up my alley
We like into like like books, like sci-fi books and movies and stuff like that.
to a degree. No,
Yeah.
no, no, I mean, I've never been really sort of right in there with anything. You know, I've got
Yeah.
I'm a bit sort of all over the map, but I loved sci-fi. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they work so well for those records. Just I like concept albums. You know, there's
Me
something cool.
too.
Is there something cool about it? Because you're kind of you can kind of go in other places. You know, because
Yeah,
most albums are about love or peace or war or whatever. But I think if you're kind of doing something on the side, you can go in like mad places. You know, you can kind of go like
yeah.
from
It's like a good novel.
yeah.
Get
I always
sucked in.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's some records that kind of like Dark Side of the Moon isn't a concept album, but it sounds like a concept album, if that makes sense. You know, there's those kind of,
Right. Yeah, I know what you mean.
you know,
Yeah.
there's those kind of things. But yeah, but there's actually a plugin. This guy makes this. He uh he was a student. He's a student. Was a student in college, and for his dissertation, he was like an engineer. He made a tape plugin called Chow Tape. Have you ever used it?
No.
And it's ridiculously good, like because he did everything. He sampled the azimuth, he sampled like the wow and like it's so intricate, like the plugin. He sampled how the magnetic tape, the weight of the tape, all this shit. Like, but it's a free plugin. You can just go to this guy's website and like you can do some
Really?
mad, yeah. You can do some really cool stuff with it.
Can you text me that too?
I'll send you the link to that.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
going to have your job work cut out for you,
Yeah,
texting
yeah.
me all these plugins and microphones.
I don't mind. I don't mind. Hey man. But yeah, I'm sure you're busy, but hey, Terry man, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I hope I
Oh,
didn't.
you're welcome. I just hope you got as much as you expected.
Yeah, man, for sure, for sure. Sorry, dude, I tend to waffle. I'm really sorry. I'm a total waffler. I
Well,
fucking
if you find you need something else, just give me a shout and we can pick
oh,
up where we left off.
that's great, man. You're a legend.
Okay.
I hope I didn't ramble too much.
No, no, it was great. It was very enjoyable.
All right, great. Cool, man. Thanks so much, brother. And
Okay.
I'll send you all that stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah, do.
yeah.
Okay.
Right,
Yeah,
bro.
and I'd love to check it out when you're done.
Oh, for sure, man. That'll
Okay.
be.
All right.
Take care, brother.
You take
Thank you very
care.
much. Cheers,
Bye
man.
for now.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.